Hello there everyone, welcome back to another video about Battle Spirits Saga. This is going to be my in-depth review of the first format, so this is going to be the starter decks and BSS01, as well as the promos available as of the time of BSS01 releasing. So essentially this is going to be everything that is before EX01, and I don't know what the tournament promos are yet. Those have not been released, but I will be doing an addendum video. By the time you have seen all of these, we will definitely know what all the tournament promos are. So if you are just discovering this video quite close to the launch of the game, hop on over to the channel or check out the Battle Spirit Saga playlist, probably up there, you should be seeing it, and you'll be able to see exactly what I am talking about. Of course, if you are new and you do enjoy this content, then please do like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Battle Spirit Saga videos, and of course, you can subscribe to my Patreon if you want to help support the channel. I also make videos on One Piece, which you can find there. So, shilling out of the way, today I'm going to be talking about Red, but I want to give a little preamble in this video before I go on to basically just jumping right into it in the next few. So just give me like 30 seconds. Basically, the reason I waited this long to do these, I know there was plenty of content creators. I'm not knocking those content creators, and I'm certainly not talking about anyone in particular. It's a very generalized statement. There were a lot of content creators who made relatively knee-jerk reaction reviews, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, and I've certainly done it in the past, but I felt that with a brand new card game, which I had pretty much zero experience with, I wanted to actually sit down and play the game like a lot and have developed some sort of understanding for why certain thresholds of power were useful, how the general game flow went, what is good, what like ended up actually being good, and why was it good, and that was going to help me establish a basis on which to evaluate the whole set, but then also moving forward to be able to make those kind of snap judgment evaluations without actually testing the card, and my barometer to not be completely off. And certainly when I go back and I look at a lot of the snap judgments I made when we were first seeing the cards revealed, and you can go and see those videos in the card reveal videos, it's very funny because I was really wrong on a lot of things. So now that I've had the opportunity to essentially grind out testing for the launch event, play in that launch event, experience the format, and, you know, basically also get validation that my testing group was pretty much able to get someone to top 4 in a week of testing, whereas everyone else there had been testing for 3 months, definitely gave me a lot of confidence that I vaguely know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to give you guys inaccurate information. With that being said, the number one thing I will always say is use these kinds of videos as a resource to develop a baseline understanding. My word is absolutely not gospel, all right? If I say a card is bad, maybe it is, but if you don't think so, try it out. Maybe I'm right, in which case you go, you know what? That YouTuber guy, I guess he had a point. But if I'm wrong, bloody hell, you might have just cracked something that a lot of people are not aware about, and that could be, you know, an edge. And that happens all the time. So basically, there's just one, me going, I think I know what I'm talking about, but two, me giving myself a get out of jail free card by saying, if I don't know what I'm talking about, you know, it is what it is. Let's go ahead and jump into this video now. I do apologize, that was probably a minute-long preamble. And we're going to go relatively fast, I think, because there's 50 cards pretty much per color, and I don't think anyone wants to be here for an hour. So, Firewall, this is a very interesting card. I think this is very much a poor man's Absolute Ice Shield. This card is really not very good. It is fine into yellow, and it is fine into aggro strategies. And therefore, I would say you always want to keep this card in mind if you see aggro taking over, because aggro is insanely powerful in this game. Why? There is no summoning sickness, and due to the nature of cost reduction, it is very much possible to just squirt out a board of like 5 guys, turn them sideways, and win the game, as happened to me in the launch event. And if you don't have the Ice Shield, there's not much you can really do. Unless you have removal in your hand, you open the removal, you open the Ice Shield, you can't really do anything. So it's very important to have these kinds of tools in your back pocket, but unlikely for this to be super meta relevant unless we have a format dominated by low power aggro. Next, we have Landmine. This is a burst when your opponent destroys a spirit to pop a 3k or fewer, and then it has a main flash effect. This is nowhere near worth the space. You are playing Burning Force over this card pretty much every single time. Charge Draw, this is a staple in red. You absolutely play this at 4 copies. It's a 2-cost draw 2, essentially. You will rarely use it at 3 or 4 costs, but you will sometimes, and even at that cost, it still feels fine. This card is absolutely fantastic, and the versatility to just also do some BP manipulation is outstanding. This card is a very, very good card. Star Altar next. This isn't very good. So when one of your spirits with a soul core is destroyed, you can just sling your cores around, but typically speaking, that's not actually going to be particularly relevant. And then during the attack step, restand is obviously nice, but honestly, red has such powerful nexuses that you would really not be considering this until you were like at nexus 4 or 5 down the list. This doesn't really do enough to justify any kind of space. Scorched Battlefield is next. This is actually pretty good. So as a blanket buff during your attack step to get everything 1k, it's actually really relevant. Why? Because you can keep your stuff at 3k and then it goes up to 4k and then you are basically immune from Burning Force, which is the #1 threat in the format that you always need to play around because otherwise you're going to get absolutely blown out by it. And additionally, at level 2, you can just threaten card advantage and make your opponent really not want to take any damage, which can also lead to a bad player overcommitting to stop attacks when they don't necessarily need to. You will get this when your opponent ice shields, for example, so you can just guarantee like a draw if you're really trying to dig for something. Great card, definitely the backup nexus of choice. Vanillas are vanilla, and they're not really worth talking about outside of an aggro strategy. You don't really want to play them. This dude is not good enough in an Awaken strategy, because whilst he's cheap, at level 2 for 3 cores, he's only 3k. If he was 4k, I think we could take him seriously, but unfortunately he's not doing enough. And I understand the Awaken mechanic, but it's not really doing anything. Whilst attacking to gain 2k is definitely decent, and if you swing with this card first at level 2, it will be 5k, so you will dodge the Burning Force. I think this is very good in aggro strategies, but outside of those, it's not really worth playing. Blazing Ball, I did see a few people playing this. It's a when summoned to salvage a red spirit. As a general rule, you pretty much never want to play when summons unless they are extremely impactful. And we'll talk about the reason why later on in this video. I'm going to point to this very specific card that has warped the entire meta. But basically, this is not doing anywhere near enough to actually justify letting your opponent trigger one of the many on-summon bursts. Blade Down a Parasol, this card is very, very good. This is cheap Confront. 3 cores to make it 5k. Does mean this is essentially a 5/5. But that is cheap enough that it's okay. And really, at level 2, you're getting this bonus effect to just pay your soul core and draw a card. And paying 1 core to draw is very, very good. This is a nice card. Big fan. Moonbow Dragon, I don't think this card is particularly good, and again, I don't really think the Awaken mechanic is particularly good. It requires a little bit too big of a board to actually be getting out for cheap, though of course, if you can do the big OTK, like, it's very, very cool, but I mean, your opponent's just going to ice shield it, so, you know, you've always got to assume there's going to be an ice shield. Vanillas, we don't talk about. This card is, again, good in an aggro strategy, but there's a strictly better version, which we will see in the main set. Seagworm, this card is fine. The main reason you play this is because you have to ascend into Seagworm Nova, and the Confront is nice at lower levels, and you know, it is a base 4k, goes up to 6k quite easily, and giving all your Awakens Confront can matter. Typically that's only really going to be Seagworm Nova though, and you often don't actually have both on the field at the same time. Next we have got Galaxy Dragon Andrometos, English. This card is very good. This is a 4 with 2 reductions. It's only a 3k at level 1, so you kind of always need to make it level 2. But it's still a 4/4, which is fine. This counts as 2 reductions, so this is an incredible turn 1 play going second, though obviously if your opponent instantly has an out to it, you're going to be very, very sad. But then at level 2 and level 3, when it attacks, you just get that, get advantage. This card is really, really good. Honestly, you don't even necessarily need it as a 4-of. It's like just a good card that you play at a few copies. Next, Nebula Dragon Andromeda. This card is incredibly good. Why? It's popping a 3k or it's popping a Nexus on summon. This is the level that your on summon needs to be for me to actually consider playing it, because yes, your opponent might get like a bounce or like a draw 2 or whatever, or like a ramp 2, whatever it may be, but that's going to be worth it if you pop one of the Nexuses, because usually you have to invest very heavily into a Nexus. This is one of the reasons why white is so powerful, because 1, it can resist this, but 2, its Nexuses are very, very cheap, whereas purple, if they just paid 6 for a Nexus and you just pop it with an Andromeda, they're probably losing the game off of that swinging advantage. And of course, it also gets confronted level 3 for 10k, which is beating over pretty much anything in the game. Feral Slash. So this is the promo card that we have so far. So this is a burst when you lose life to pop one of your opponent's 3k or fewer BP units. And then you can also pay to activate the main, which is pop one of your opponent's nexus that cost 4 or fewer. This is a card which might be relevant. We will need to see how the meta shakes up in its final form. But because people generally don't want to be playing Nexuses that are too high cost because they're just going to get popped, it might be the case that this actually ends up being quite good. If anything, I can see this being good outside of Red, though, because Red already has so many ways to remove Nexuses that people kind of are just not going to play them against Red because they know they're just going to get removed. The burst may not actually end up doing anything, though, and you may mainly be using this just as a way to remove Nexuses during your opponent's turn and be efficient with your core usage. Burning Force. This card is a meta-defining card because it pops at flash speed 2 of your opponent's 3k off your BPs. If this removes your opponent's cost reductions, this removes your opponent's attackers, this removes your opponent's blockers, and if you don't want to do that, it can pop Nexuses during your turn. This card is... it does it all. It does it all. This card is insane. Meta warping, insanely good. 4 of in red, 3 of in everything else. Flame Breath, this is an interesting one because this resolves when summoned, and this raises the threshold to 4k. So this is actually quite scary. You can then use the Main or Flash effect. You probably won't. This usually will actually remove quite a few things, but again, people have wisened up to the whole when summoned thing, so this is unlikely to be good enough to actually play in that spot to punish your opponent. Volcanic Break, I think this card is quite slept on. Being able to, at flash speed, pop a 6k or fewer BP unit is actually really, really big. Like, that is removing a lot of stuff, especially if you're able to use it in the early to mid stages of the game. Obviously, later on in the game, when there are lots of cores, 6k is not really going to cut it. You're going to see stuff at bigger stat values than that, but this card is really, really good nonetheless. I do think it is being a little bit slept on. Obviously, going over that 3k threshold when your opponent thinks they're safe is crazy. Star Blessed Draw, this is one of the most meta-defining cards alongside Burning Force. This basically, the idea behind this card, when it came out in Japan, was to combat, like, basically early game strategies. So you'd be like, okay, if you're going to do all your early game stuff, that's cool. I'm going to draw 2 when it really, really matters during the early stage of the game. Unfortunately, what that has done here to the English format is it's completely fucked it. Where basically, you have to play this card because if your opponent uses an on-summon, you have to threaten them with this. You have to set this burst. You have to threaten them with it because on summons usually are pretty good effects. And what this essentially does is it warps the entire format because it goes, okay, my on summon to draw me a card is going to let them trigger their burst to draw 2. So, and potentially draw 4 into red, which feels horrible. So the entire format has warped away into only playing the most powerful the most powerful versions of these burst effects. As a result, you see that colors that, don't play lots of on-summons, like white, end up dominating because a lot of these cards end up being quite dead into them. Whereas these kinds of cards punish every other color. So, long and short of it is this is a 3 to 4 of and everything. And it's completely warped format. Big Bang Energy, this is an essential part of your Seaworm combo. You have to play this card if you are planning on doing your Seaworm combo. As like the big combo. You can certainly do it outside of the big combo though, and it's just a very, very good card for that reason. You set all your cost to 1, you shit out your whole hand, you heal up to 5, and you go to combat and you swing and your opponent ice shields and you go, okay, very, very sad, and then they ball wipe you. Sacred Thundering Peaks is an interesting card. So during your attack step, one of your spirits is destroyed via comparing BP. It doesn't really happen very often for red. You can select a spirit that costs less than the destroyed spirit from your trash and return it to your hand. So basically, if you're going to just start crashing things under, you can, regain advantage. But, I mean, and then during your attack set, one of your spirits with confront attacks first during your turn, it is refreshed. That's a much better reason to use this card, but it's so expensive. I really don't think it's worth it. I do see people trying to say this card is quite good. I've never found it to be so, but perhaps I am wrong. Next up, we have got Where Stars Are Born. This is really a bait card, in my opinion. The reason is, by the time you're able to actually do any kind of meaningful searching off of this effect, looking at the top 2 or the top 3, you've already developed a big enough board where you would rather just draw 2. And obviously, during your attack step, 1k off your BP, that's not hitting anything, ever. Ancient Vault, this is, again, just a very bait card that is really not worth playing. I mean, yes, okay, you can potentially play it for 1, but if you've got that many reductions on your field, you probably don't need the Nexus that increases your reductions. Volcanic Canyon, this is the best red Nexus. This card is unbelievable. You only need 1. I think playing more than 1 might actually put you at risk of deck out. I've decked out people during the launch event. But drawing 2, discarding 1, just provides you with a level of, filtering and sculpting your hand for a particular situation that is unmatched. To the point where I am strongly considering just playing this across the board in other colors because of how much power that gives you. And you can sling a core onto it to just buff all your spirits during attack step 2. Card is a 4 of. 4 of. Next up, we have got Eagle Knife. This is a cool card for Pterosaurs. It's not good though. Next, we have got Flamefish. I don't know if this is a noob trap card or a really broken card, or if it's just going to fall off. This card is very scary because it hits the 4k threshold. You slap a Soul Core on it and you just block with it. And potentially, if you can cause the Flamefish to crash with whatever it's blocking, you can 2 for 1, which can be absolutely ridiculous value. But obviously, it very much is an inefficient use of cores. But even still, like, it is just such a good card, especially into aggro, that I feel like it is always just going to stay in the main because, you know, otherwise, if you don't have this early game tool, Red's early game, this is part of the reason it's so strong. So I do feel like Flamefish is an incredibly powerful card. I see people not playing it, though. I don't really know if I agree with that. Blaze Dragonoid Magwo. Man, this card is not worth playing. Next, Dynaman Tyrannoid. This card is nuts. Why? This is an early game beast. You can play this going first or second, and it will be level 3, which means it's a 6k. And that means it's not getting removed by basically anything. The only way your opponent immediately outs it is if they have core removal, right? And if you're going second, actually, they can't, because you'll have 2 cores on this. So yeah, this card is insanely strong, very, 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 very powerful, incredibly good early game. Dragon Guard, this is not very good because your opponent is basically never, ever, ever going to let that happen. It's just never going to happen. This is a vanilla, so yeah. Another vanilla. Another vanilla. Cornered Flame Rat. This is an interesting one. When it hits, you draw a card. The problem is, I feel like it's very unlikely to hit. You need to stack 5 cores for this to not just instantly get Burning Forced. So you have to, like, play it really early and go really aggressive to develop any value off of it, and hope your opponent doesn't just instantly have an out. Seems pretty unlikely to be worthwhile, and I would way rather play Flamefish, right? Next up, we have got Fierce Gora Horn Grizzly. This is another cheap Confronter, but it only gets it at level 2 and level 3. I much prefer Parasaur. Dilophosa. This is an interesting one. It cannot block your opponent's spirits, but, you know, it's potentially a 4-drop 8k, which is nuts. This dude is very, very big. And I think his aggro potential is being a little bit slept on. I do think this card is quite strong. Of course, not being able to block does suck, but also, like, Ice Shield exists, so, you know, the one turn where maybe your opponent can threaten you, as long as you got the Ice Shield, it's really not a big deal. And then, like, once you have a board, then one less blocker is not really going to matter. You're swinging with every turn anyway. Seems pretty good to me. Next, we've got Flame Emperor Agniphon. This card is so, so bad. Do not play this card. Next, Stormbeast Emperor Thunderleon. This is a bait card and a half. So at level 3, you draw when it attacks, but that is going to make this card a bloody 8/8. God, that is not worth the investment of cores. You're like, you need to be so late in the game for that to actually happen. At that point, you don't want to draw cards. And then, well, unless you're, you know, in top deck wars, then yeah, fine. And then at level 1, 2, 3 is a when summoned, you pop all your opponent's spirits with 2k of your BP. Spoiler, this is never going off. Ever. And you're just giving your opponent a when summoned. This card is dog shit, dude. I hate this card. It's so bad. It's just never gonna go off, like, ever. Like, I get the idea behind it, like, as an out to aggro. If that said 3k, not 2k, I'd be like, damn, this card is strong. The fact says 2k, everyone and their mum can get above 2k in the early stage of the game really, really easily. And also, you're triggering a when summon, so your opponent can, you know, just get value off of your when summon. I just don't think this is good. Next, we have got Pentacerop, another vanilla, so we don't care. Another vanilla, we do not care. I mean, all these vanillas are fine. This one is good, though, because this is for 3 cores, a 4k, and you can play it for free. So this is the one vanilla I'm like, damn, this card good. This card very good. Next up, we have got Raging Dino Dyrano Rex. This card is definitely being slept on. This is a 7 with 4 reductions, but you don't necessarily care about the reductions so much because you actually do want to splash this in other colors potentially. So when it attacks, it has Confront. That's nice. At level 3, select one of your opponent's spirits with 4k off your BP and destroy it. So this is going above that big threshold. It's a 9k Confronter, which is fundamentally going to hit over basically everything. And if you structure this in the right kind of deck, you are just going to be dealing with a huge number of threats. 4k is pretty damn good. You can combine this with with BP reducing effects to remove a lot of very, very good cards. It is very funny. I have used this to just pop Elk before. Whoa, what do you do to that? It's very, very funny. But the card is decent. It's not broken or anything. Syntosaurus. So when this attacks, you basically potentially get to plus. Doesn't really happen. At level 2, it gets very, very big, though. And this being huge can potentially matter, though it typically is unlikely to. You mainly play this for the attribute. If you do play it at all, you don't necessarily have to. This big boy, Jurassic King Gigano Rex, he is a large lad. So, God, this card has a lot of text, but the long and short of it is, he confront, he make all your unit very big, and he can be played for very cheap. That's basically the long and short of it. The idea behind the Pterosaur deck is to just go wide and, like, go ham, and it loses to purple really, really, really hard, because they rush purple down to, like, 2, and then purple goes, yep, cool, Curse Dragon, and your board is wiped, and purple ramps up to like double the amount of cores you have, and is able to like just play out a couple blockers, stabilize over the next turn, because you are definitely not going to have the resources to kill them on the crackback, especially if they've got an ice shield, and then they build a board from there and you lose the game. This is, however, kind of the opposite once you start splashing in and going for the hybrid build, which this is an essential part of. So long and short of all of that is this is an essential card for the Pterosaur deck. You don't want to play Pterosaurs without this card. Or indeed the hybrid. Nebula Dragon. This is a really spicy card because this does 2 damage when it has a Soul Core on it. If your opponent goes down to 2, which is very much the meta with Ice Shield, expecting to take 1, use Ice Shield, heal 1, and then end the turn, and you swing with this, and they don't immediately have an answer for it, right? If they don't have a blocker, if they don't have whatever, you just win the game, because they actually can't really do anything, which is always really, really, really funny. Also, it's going to be at 7k. It's going to be pretty damn difficult to just hard remove. I don't think, outside of, like, core theft, there's, like, any way they can just instantly deal with it, and then just stack up more cores onto it than your opponent has cards in hand. Yeah, this card's very, very nice as a cheeky little tech. I think we might be seeing more of it going around. This is a vanilla. This is really, I don't think super good. Like, yes, okay, you can potentially pop like a 6k, but if you have cores removed from it, it doesn't really do anything. It's got Awaken, it's fine. I just don't think it's very good. Especially because, like, typically you're going to want to Awaken before it gets destroyed, Flash to, like, get the cores off it, and then it's really anti-synergistic. Ares Dragon, again, this is part of the Awaken deck. At level 3, you can refresh everything, but again, like, you just get Ice Shielded, and then it's like, oh, okay, very bad. So, yeah. And, okay, this is one of the best cards in the set. Divine Halberd Dragon Arc. So, neither player's life can be reduced to attack spirit that has 2,000 of your BP. So basically, this functionally does the same thing as that 5-drop X-ray that popped them all, because, I mean, I'm not taking damage either way, so I don't care. But then, when it attacks, you can also start removing things. So, you play this early game, it's just, you know, for 3 cores, it's 4k, so it's getting above that threshold, and you just sit there, and your opponent has to play a much slower game, which obviously aggro does not want to do, to build up their things to 3k, because aggro decks typically hitting the 3k is a little bit annoying, it takes a little bit extra, takes an extra turn or 2, and because you have the extra turn or 2, suddenly you're able to stabilize. As the red player, you're able to build up your own early game, and then at that point the aggro player's lost the initiative, and they're going to lose. So yeah, this card is amazing. I think it's going to be in the main deck for a while during this format. And finally, Supernova Dragon Seagworm Nova. God, this card is insane. It heals you back up to 5. It has Flash Awakens, so you can sling cores around and do some real silly stuff. And, of course, when it attacks, you just fucking blow up your opponent's board. This card is unbelievable. It does it all. This is the only reason red is good. I'm, like, honestly, like, honest to God, like, if this card did not exist, red would be really, really bad. But this card exists, so red is really, 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 really good. This is the MVP. This is your build around. Like, this card, it just does everything. If you're not playing this in your red deck, I don't know what you are doing. And with that being said, that is it on the set review for red. I tried to keep this fairly concise, so I was just telling you how good cards are, basically, and why they are. This set is really, really interesting. Starblast Draw has really warped the format, and we'll talk about this more in white, in the white review as well, because there's a bunch of cards in white that are insane, that have warped the format too. So if you are interested in that, of course, please do subscribe to the channel for more Battle Spirits Saga content. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. You can join my Discord server as well, talk about all things trading card games. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.